All right, everyone, welcome back to day 2 of the 10th annual Toronto Raptors Coaches Open House presented by Tangerine. I'm Kayla Grey. So I'm sure you all know by now, but after each session, we're going to have a pop quiz. That's right, a Kahoot. So make sure you pay attention. We're going to put the information up on your screen. You can follow along on your phone. And the person who answers the most questions correctly, the fastest, they win. So speed, accuracy, they count here. The person with the highest score will be mailed a signed Raptors jersey. How about that? So our next guest joining me in conversation is Toronto Raptors Assistant Coach Brittni Donaldson. Brittni graduated from the University of Northern Iowa with a degree in statistics and actuarial science. Did I say that right?
You sure did.
On her way to becoming the youngest assistant coach in the NBA. Brittni, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be back here with some people talking hoops. So
familiar space,
yeah.
Familiar space. Okay, so before your role as assistant coach, you were actually, you spent 2 seasons as a data analyst with the Raptors prior to that. ESPN, I'm gonna read this, called you an advanced stats guru. I'm not good with numbers. There's some people that also agree with me that are watching right now. So could you break down just what that means?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure where they got that label, but I'll take it. You know, it's funny. Ever since the game of basketball was even developed and, we started playing basketball, there's always been, or at least most of the time, there's been some sort of data available, right? You have a box score, you have play-by-play. You can gain information somehow by looking at a set of numbers, either after the game or during the game. And that's always been there. So this idea of, analyzing numbers isn't exactly new like people think it might be. The only thing that's really different is in the last 5 or 10 years, that set of data, it's not just a box score anymore. It's not just play-by-play. There's a ton of information out there with this new technology that we have, with player tracking data, all these other fancy things we can get with, ball tracking and shot data and all of that type of stuff. The data has advanced and there's a lot more of it. And so really, I'm just a basketball guru that happens to know, and I have the technical skills and the education to, know how to handle that much data.
Right.
And manipulate that much data and really work and analyze that much data, but really none of that really matters unless I know if I'm asking the right basketball questions and trying to get to the right basketball answers. And so I like to say I'm a basketball guru that happens to know how to work with data.
I mean, you more than happen to know. Like you know exactly where to look, and for someone like me who doesn't really have that, range, the numbers might seem overwhelming. And you have to be very specific when it comes to figuring out the answers, as you're saying, to the right question. So let's go there then. How and what specific numbers are you looking at when it comes to figuring out a player's workout or day-to-day duties?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely use the information we have to inform, how we curate a workout or whatnot. I think it kind of depends on what moment in the season we're at, or if we're in the off season. I would say, like a time like now, we're really working on developing players. We're not in season, so we're really looking at deficiencies that our players might have and trying to make them better, right? So we can use the data we have that are from in games and both in practices and see, maybe this guy really needs to work on his left hand, or this guy really needs to work on this specific move, because the data we have tells us that he's a little deficient there. So right now, we're using it more in that sense. I would say during the season, we use it more to kind of enhance, everything we do in a practice or in a drill has an intention.
Right.
We have a philosophy, we have values that we stand on. We're always trying to point back to those. And so if something we really value is maybe a certain action in our offense or shot selection, certain types of shots we want to get, we're going to look at the numbers and say, are we getting these types of shots that align with our philosophy, align with our values? And if we are, how are we doing? Like, how efficient are we being? So we're really trying to point back to our philosophies and point back to our pillars that we have already established as basketball people and say, are we in alignment with what we're trying to do? And we're going to try and practice those more and be more efficient at those.
I mean, there are those that are statistic snobs, let's say. It's all about the feel of the game, but really having the numbers, having the stats there you can enhance the game so much when it comes to planning.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because you have this great, fresh, new lens looking at any tape, what does the preparation look like for you when it comes to game planning?
That's probably my favorite part, I think, game planning, because we have quite a few different coaches doing quite a few different things when it comes to game planning. We have all the video work being done. We have the advanced scout who's looking 5+ games out at this opposing team that we're going to play. We have, coaches specifically focusing on defense, on offense, and everything you can think of. And we already, like I said, we have our philosophy, we have the pillars we stand on, we know what we're trying to do, but now I can just add more detail around that. If we know we want to get a guy going a certain direction, a lot of players in the NBA can go both directions very well, right? And so in order to come to like a game plan or where do we want to send this guy, previously you'd have to watch hours and hours and hours of film, and even so you wouldn't be able to really come to a conclusive like he is this efficient going this way, this efficient going this way. It would just be like an eye test. And now we can actually tell you exactly how efficient, like to the decimal, a guy is going left or right. And not only that, what does he tend to do? What are his behaviors going left or right? And how does that align with our game plan and what we're trying to do? And so really it just gives us more direction, more information, and more detail around what we're already trying to do, but now we can point it in a clear direction.
Well, and it helps everybody when you're getting a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more specific when you're out there. You have that in the back of mind. So knowing that this is kind of where the game is, and I don't want to say going, but adapting, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's evolving too.
Yep.
There are a lot of young coaches out there that are trying to say, well, we got to evolve as well at this younger stage, but they just don't know where or how to start. So how can a younger coach who doesn't maybe have the right access or resources to track, where can they begin?
That's a great question. Even at the college level, there's not nearly as much available as there is at the NBA level, so it's not just a youth really problem.
Right.
It's, a lot of coaches at any level are dealing with this. But I would say, and I've said this a couple times now, we really just fall back on our philosophies and our pillars, and we define those prior to anything we do. And so if I'm coaching youth, I think the advice I would give is pick 3 or 4 things that you really value as a coach, your own philosophy, and when you're curating your practices and your workouts and you're talking to your team, really try to point back to those as much as you can. Every drill that you do, every practice you have, there should be an intention, and it should point to one of your philosophies or your values. And yeah, you're not going to have all this fancy technology and whatnot to track everything you're doing, but who says you can't whip out the pencil and paper and track, the things you deem to be valuable, whether that's we want to get this many paint touches, or we want to get deflections on defense, or we want this many people in the paint going after offensive rebounds. There's still ways you can do that. It's going to take a little more time, right? But you can still do that. But even if you don't have that or don't, want the data side of it, you can always point back to points of emphasis and direct your players to those at all times.
You are just a trailblazer, and outside of the statistical analysis that you provide the franchise, there are way more things that you do with the team. What do those duties include?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have a hand on quite a few parts of the organization in my 3 years, but on the coaching side specifically now, yes, I am kind of the point person for the analytics-driven decision-making. I also have a pretty big hand in player development. I'm on the court with the guys. I'm helping curate the workout and design the workout, and I'm in the conversations around what do we think he needs to work on? What situations can we put him in to see him excel? And then also the game planning, like you mentioned. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and we have coaches meetings before every game, and I'm actively involved in those, and not just speaking from my data perspective, but also my basketball perspective. And as you also mentioned, I have 2 years of experience in the front office, and so I can kind of see things from that perspective too. And if one of them comes to me about a question with, a draft prospect or something, I can contribute to that as well. Not that that's my main responsibility, but I have experience there. So I kind of just, I'm a chameleon. I kind of just try to blend in wherever I'm needed. And, I think one of my values personally is having that sort of range, like you mentioned, and not necessarily specializing in one thing, but having the ability to pull from multiple different tools and multiple different experiences.
One thing I love Masai said about you is that you have coaching in your DNA. Where does that come from?
Oh, man. That was really kind of him to say. But I think there might be something to it. I think what he meant, he sees that I've been playing this game a very long time, and I've been around this game for a very long time. And throughout the years, I've had very many, a wide spectrum of different types of coaches and personalities and leadership styles that I've had to play under. And so I think, along the way, subconsciously, I kind of just picked up on different traits and different philosophies that maybe I gravitated towards, or maybe I didn't gravitate towards. And, growing up, I never had this great ambition to be a coach by any means. But I always knew I could do it if I wanted to. And now that I've started doing it and been around it for a bit, I do kind of see those resurfacing, those experiences that I had and the things I've taken along the way from other coaches. But also I've thought about this too. When I was a player and I was playing collegiately, I underwent 4 knee operations. And so I spent a lot of time sidelined and unable to actually be out on the court playing. And what that forced me to do was view the game through a completely different lens. I had to watch a lot more film. I chose to talk a lot more to my coaches and be in meetings with them and try to see things through their eyes. I just wanted to be involved in any way I could. But then even when I got back out on the court, there were certain things I couldn't do that I could do before because my body just wouldn't allow me. So I had to become a lot more cerebral with the game. I had to really think the game at a high level in order to keep up, in order to go back to where I was. So while I would never wish injury upon anybody, and while that period was really tough for me, in hindsight, it really, really helped me see the game through a lens that a coach would. Or, it really helped me become more cerebral with the game. And so I think that plays a huge part into it as well.
I mean, there's so many different ways when you're around or on a team that you can lead. And I think that just speaks to it. Okay, so there's a couple of questions here from the folks that are watching the event today. We're going to start off with Coach Laura, who is from Toronto and wants to know, who was your favorite coach to play for and what made them your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. As I mentioned, I played for so many different coaches, but I think I have to give my high school coach a shout out. His name's Kirk Walker. He was my high school coach. We won a state championship with him, and he was a in-your-face, did not let you cut any corners type of coach. And that was kind of the first coach like that I had had. And so there's an adjustment period, like if you make a mistake, you're running or you're getting yelled at or whatever. But the reason, that was effective, the reason I respected him even amidst all that was because off the court, I knew he had a genuine level of care for me as a person. And he took the time to get to know me and how I learned and what I was interested in. And that, that intentional time he took outside of practice or games or, he knew me much deeper than what my stats in the newspaper said. Wow. And he showed that. And so he could hold me accountable. And I respected that. And then even further, we still keep in touch to this day. He's still coaching. He's coaching collegiately now. We still keep in touch. We talk hoops a lot, but he's always been a mentor of mine. I've learned so much from him about basketball and about leadership. But now he's taking the time to try and learn from me. And I just think that exchange of knowledge and his ability to be like a lifelong learner is really admirable and something I hope to do. And it doesn't matter who I might be learning from, there's always something to learn. And so I admire him a lot, I appreciate him a lot, and I try to follow in his footsteps as much as I can.
I love that so much. Yeah. Okay, Coach Shauna from Toronto wants to know, what was it like to have your dad as your trainer, coach, and friend growing up?
Oh man, you're gonna make me emotional.
We've all seen if we haven't, I honestly, the photos of yourself and your dad just playing hoops on your driveway, the feels.
Yeah, it was really special. It was so organic. Basketball, just to give a little background, my dad played basketball growing up his entire life. He played at the college level. He's in the Iowa High School Hall of Fame for basketball. He's, very decorated as a player, and he had coached me my entire life. And but not only that, he was just a basketball junkie. Like, he was an NBA fan for his entire life. We didn't have an NBA team in Iowa, but he was watching the NBA all the time. And just any high school game or college game he could go to, he would go to. So he was just very, very passionate about the game. And so I never felt like forced to play basketball. It was never a thing that I felt I was pressured to do. I just happened to be exposed to it at a young age, and I loved it. It was something I genuinely loved and wanted to do. And so we bonded over that, just genuine level of passion. It was never, to me, it never felt like a parent just trying to make their kid good at something.
Handing him a tennis ball in his left hand, like, it's okay, and we're working on the handles.
It was pure and it was organic, and I think that's what made it so special. And for my personal basketball development, not only could he be out on the court with me and demonstrate things and compete with me and, tactically make me better on the court, but he loved taking me to games. He loved sitting me down in front of a TV and watching the NBA playoffs. And I think that, I really, really valued. Now looking back, I really value that because any sort of exposure outside of just being on the court is really valuable, especially if you want to continue your basketball career. So as much film you can watch, different types of levels of basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball. Like, I got so much exposure to the game, and I'm just really grateful for that, and a lot of that was through my dad.
All right, last question is from Coach Nathan from Calgary, and he asks, you were able to combine your education and your passion. What advice do you have for young athletes that want to also do the same? It's a good question.
It's a great question. Yeah. I feel fortunate that I was able to do that, but I have to note that I didn't exactly plan to do that. That wasn't something I'd premeditated. I just had happened to be studying math and a math degree because I was interested in it, and I was interested in basketball, so I was playing basketball. But I think there's something to be said about that. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the idea of like specializing on something, at an early age, or trying to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life at an early age, I at times hesitate, preaching that because I think as many, you're going to have multiple passions growing up, especially as you evolve and as you meet new people and are introduced to new things and whatever, your passions are going to kind of fluctuate. But I encourage youth to engage with all of them, and as much as you can, try to do anything you want to do. I don't know, for me, it's just like chase whatever passions you have, experiment, and it's okay if you don't have this clear, defined idea of what you want to do, as long as you're doing what you love to do. And for me, that worked out because there just happened to be this new, sports analytics movement happening, and I was able to combine my passions, and I really think as sports in particular are evolving, there's so many different side doors you can use to get into the sports industry. I mean, look at you. I mean, there's so many different ways, right? And so don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't over-specialize too early. That's the advice I would give. But yeah, there's definitely so many different possibilities of combining multiple passions and making that into a career.
I love that. When it comes to life decisions, you got to stay open and you got to stay fluid. Brittni, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. And lastly, a huge thank you to Tangerine, because without their support, this event would not be possible. All right. Stay tuned for the Kahoot session next. And then we're going to head into a short break before we continue on for the day.